Welcome to episode 10, the final episode in this series on consciousness. My name is Candace Sanderson. I'm glad to have you back. The information I'm sharing is based on firsthand knowledge from my messengers. They've told me about the two operating systems that are always running in the background of our lives. One is a GPS system, obviously for guidance. The other is for our quality control. Why are these systems important? Because they are part of what the messenger showed me was a formula, something that I've discussed several times across this series. It's the T formula, TEA, thoughts, energy, action. You see, the messengers have shown me a different way to perceive life. I now view almost everything through the lens of energy. And this that I'm sharing with you is part of that new paradigm shift for me. These systems, GPS and quality control, guide and fuel that T formula. Once we recognize them and understand how they work, then we can live more consciously. That's the point where we become empowered and we take control over our own lives in ways, at least for me, that I never thought possible. Over the last few episodes, we've also built a dashboard to house our consciousness awareness tools. And where the dashboard is located is just as important as the dashboard or the toolbox itself. It is located in our own special place that is just outside the realms of physicality. Here's a little nugget. The more we visit our place, the stronger it becomes. So much so that when it is our time to drop our physical forms, not just in meditation or out of body travels, but from our 3D life, we can use our place as a stopping point. We can go there to regroup before we move on. It's familiar territory. We have looked at tools for protection in our consciousness awareness toolbox. And these are the tools that keep us safe during our 5D travels. But don't forget, they also help us during the 3D. In addition to those obvious tools of protection, such as prayer and sometimes meditation, we have the energy bubble, what Bob Monroe called the reball, resonant energy balloon. And that is what surrounds us and protects the energy body. We also have a matrix or a cage of light, as well as a crystalline grid that we can use for planetary protection. By the way, that crystalline grid surrounding the Earth, it is also a great instrument to amp our communications in both the 3D and with our cosmic friends. Check out a chapter in my first book, The Reluctant Messenger. It's called The Crystalline Grid. I also have an updated account of that chapter in my series from The Reluctant Messenger. It's a small book just on that topic, and I cleverly named it The Crystalline Grid. I have my protection tools in my dashboard. For the individual bubble, there's a roller ball that's the size of my palm, and it's installed right on the panel. I push it down, give it a spin, and then when I let go, that spinning vortex of energy, the reball, that bubble of light, automatically covers me in one fell swoop. It's almost like a giant net that they use in fishing or maybe a lasso, but that swirling energy immediately cascades around me. Some people have written me to tell me that they use two huge push buttons on their dashboard. There's a smaller one, and that's for their individual reball. And then they have a larger one that they use for the Earth grid. When they mash the button, something that looks like a parachute opens up and covers and drapes the target with that protective blanket. That is the beauty of these tools. You can use whatever works for you. Also, honor them when they change. Those changes are often made to increase their effectiveness and their efficiency. We also have movement tools. These instruments aid in our movement toward our goal. And our goal is the A, the action in that T formula, thoughts, energy, action. But before we move somewhere in the 5D, ideally, we have already used those tools for protection. But the next step is identifying that T, that thought in the T formula. We state our intentions, our thoughts, in a positive manner. I will meet my guides, or I meet my guides. We do not say I want to meet my guides, because thinking about the law of attraction, the word want indicates lack, and using that word would attract that lack. We don't want to attract that. So it is important to state our intentions, our thoughts in that T formula with positive words leading to the manifestation, which is the A, the action of what we desire. Before we review the tools for movement, let's look at the tools we've discussed already to send our intentions. I've talked about putting my intention into a flare gun. Maybe you want to use a slingshot, whatever works. But I use this so that I can shoot my intention, the thought, into the sky, into the cosmos, into the 5D. We want it to illuminate, that's why I use a flare gun, so that the universe can see what we want to manifest. That's the A and the T formula, the action. Remember, think of an intention as an invitation. It does not work so well if you keep that invitation on your counter. So if our intention is to connect with our angels, or maybe it's just to travel throughout the cosmos, or maybe it's more 3D in nature. Maybe our intention is to run a meeting at work that goes smoothly and efficiently. But this is where our movement tools come in handy. After the intention is set and sent, we're ready to bring in the E, the energy from the TEA formula. Personally, I love using the ladder of enlightenment. For me, it is a quick way to rapidly access the 5D. You can install a miniature trampoline on your dashboard and watch your mini you catapult into space. Or maybe you want to launch into the cosmos like a rocket. So instead, install a little launch pad on your dashboard. Use a Merkaba. Remember, that's that star tetrahedron consisting of one pyramid pointing up, combined with another one pointing down. When we visualize ourselves inside it, it becomes a vehicle of light. That way we are protected and we can safely and quickly travel in the 5D. Another tool that I haven't mentioned for travel is the coiled timeline. In my dashboard, it looks like a slinky, and I just toss it out. As it unravels, I can pinpoint where I want to land. Here's how it works. In 3D, as we move from one event to another, time appears to be a straight line, but it isn't. The messengers tell me that time is not linear. It's actually a curvy sine wave. So now when we expand our consciousness into a field of energy, we see that it encompasses more of this curvy timeline. Then we can focus on this coiled timeline and shift our awareness either forward to the future or perhaps backwards to the past. And the larger we expand, the more of the timeline we encapsulate, and the easier it is for us to access those realms that we in 3D associate with time. This is where meditation also can be a tool for travel, because it helps us achieve that point of consciousness, to just a point of stillness. I especially notice this when I use the sound-based technologies like what Monroe Institute uses, because it allows us to expand into this beautiful, unlimited field of energy. Let's discuss a few more tools that I have not mentioned. One that I use for healing pain is the Super Soaker energy gun. Now, that just appeared one day while I was getting in my car on my way to my friend's house, Maria. All of a sudden, this picture flashed in front of my eyes. I first thought I was looking at this intricate root system of a plant before I realized these were nerve endings. And I saw these dark clusters at the tips of several nerve endings. And I realized maybe isn't the right word. I had this knowing that it represented, those dark nerve endings represented pain and discomfort. This was in like the shoulder area, the upper back. Now, while my observer was watching this, suddenly me, the one who was experiencing this, started shrinking down until the root clusters were larger than I was. Remember, often our OBE travels begin with the recognition of our observer. When that occurs, we know we've taken the first step in expanding our awareness, because we're no longer this isolated particle that's associated with being in the body. We become this field of energy. But once you begin to shift your awareness, your observer becomes your placeholder. The observer becomes the bridge that connects us to the 5D, but we also return to the 3D by crossing our observer bridge. At the time of this experience, I did not know that, but I eventually understood it. And the real me, my spirit, my field of energy that's connected to everything, was now fully involved in this experience. That is the field experience. But back to the story, I felt this shift in awareness. And many times when this happens, the 5D becomes not as real as the 3D, but more real. Everything is amplified. Colors are brighter, and I see more colors than I've ever seen in 3D. The same thing for the other senses. The smells are sweeter, sounds are fuller, everything is amplified beyond the 3D. This is what the messengers have told me is referred to as phasing. As we explore the outer realms of consciousness, we slip beyond the physical body and we notice the observer. You know, that's that first part of the process, knowing that we're going beyond. I know that my initial experience happened, and for those who have, are familiar with me, it happened while I was driving to work one morning. But it was spontaneous, but you can do this with clear intent and gradually. After all, we go out of body every single night when we dream. Each of us, we step beyond the physical, but we know that when we're awake, when we see that observer. But realize we are the ones in control. We can take these steps, these phases, as far as we wish. It's a matter of learning to recognize the subtle nature of energy, of vibrations, of frequencies. And once again, that often begins when we notice the observer. I digress, but this is an important part of learning to navigate the 5D world. It is often very gradual. But once you notice the observer, you realize, aha, I'm going into that phasing process. The observer often seems to arrive unannounced. So that's when it's a perfect time to take advantage. That's where the empowerment arrives. Well, this is exactly what happened to me on this day as I found myself shrinking down so small that I was smaller than the size of my fingernail. And all of a sudden I looked down and I realized I was holding something that looked like one of those supersized water guns that my children had played with when they were younger. It was strapped to my back and I was just holding it. But you've got to realize this is another example of that fluid nature of the 5D. You don't necessarily do something, but something nonetheless occurs. This is spirit taking over. It's the energies of the universe coming together to teach a lesson, or maybe just to demonstrate some sort of important concept. Maybe it's just there for you to learn that you are definitely more than your physical body. Instinctively, I raised my laser weapon and I zapped a nerve ending. And I laughed when I saw it because it just turned to ashes. But without knowing I was going to do this, I flipped a switch, which I didn't even know existed, on this handy dandy supersized laser gun. And then I focused again on what's now the smoldering nerve endings. I pushed the trigger again, and I guess it's called pulling the trigger. But anyway, this time it released an icy cold blast that neutralized the area. It neutralized the pain. Then I moved to each nerve ending that had those darkened spots. And I literally removed the cause of the pain at its root. Now, I was so surprised by this. I did not expect it. It was just so vivid. So I just went with the flow. When it was over, I got in my car and I drove the short distance to Maria's house. When she greeted me at the front door, she told me that her upper back and shoulder had been bothering her. I just laughed because I knew exactly what to do. We sat down in her living room, got into a meditative state, closed our eyes. And just as I had practiced a few minutes before, I imagined myself shrinking down small enough till I could find her nerve endings so I could neutralize the pain with my super soaker gun. Well, you know what? It worked. Her pain stopped. Another thing we can do for healing or when we meditate is to use crystals. I always keep some around, but if you're somewhere and you don't have your crystals, you can still access their powers through going to your place in the 5D. And the more frequently you go to the 5D and back, the quicker it becomes. All you have to do is to imagine crystals, for example, embedded in your dashboard, surrounding your dashboard. Maybe you want to install a well or a bucket in your dashboard with all sorts of crystals. This is what I do. Then all you have to do is grab a handful. You don't have to think about it, but what you receive, what you grab are the crystals that you needed. And remember, when radios were first built, they used crystals. So never underestimate their almost magical powers. Quartz crystals, for example, amplify the vibrations of whatever you're working on. I also use a slider on my dashboard, and that helps me ramp up energy at any time that I need it. It could be to add or strengthen protection. I use it to slide me farther into the 5D by expanding my awareness. I can also use that to strengthen the communication, to add to the clarity when I'm talking with my angels or my guides. I also use it to give me a boost in energy when my caffeine levels are low. All I do is drop into my place. I go to my dashboard and I push that slider upward. When I first began channeling, the messenger showed me how the law of attraction works. They had told me that I communicated with them, the non-physical, through, quote, vibrational matches and energy exchanges. I remember when they told me that, I smiled. I thought, oh, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. But then what had sounded like a great answer wasn't. I didn't have a clue how that worked. Those were just words to me, and I just couldn't connect the dots. What did they mean by these vibrational matches and energy exchanges? Well, I woke up early one morning with the answers. The messengers must have communicated with me through my dreams, but I did not remember the dream. Instead, I just woke up with this understanding of how it worked. Here's the backstory. I'd gone to bed questioning this without realizing this was way back when I first began channeling. But that question became my intention. Then I let that intention go. I didn't use a flare gun or a slingshot that I learned about later on, but I released it in a very organic, natural way. Yeah, I fell asleep. But as soon as I woke, I had the answer. The messengers told me there were, quote, energy packets that existed in structures that looked like cumulus clouds. They told me that these packets float within these clouds, and in that state, they are pure potential, and they remain as unmanifested potential until a thought, that's the T in our formula, a desire, a prayer, or in other words, an intention, that thought is set. This intention starts a chain of events in motion, and it causes the cloud's energy packets to split and recombine with other components to match the frequencies of the intention. These newly combined packets drift to the forefront of the cloud, and they assume a direct position for contact with the person or the people who set the intention. I think of it like a magnet, and that magnet attracts another magnet. The messenger's explanation demonstrated how that law of attraction works, but it also shined a light on the importance of not doubting your intention. That's one reason why you need to let that intention go, to launch it into the cosmos before doubt has an opportunity to creep in. Because as soon as you doubt the outcome, what you want to happen, then all of a sudden those energy packets, now associated with the energy of doubt, come forward and they replace the energy packets of your original intention. So set the intention, then let it go. Do something else, like falling asleep, like I did, but do something different to keep you from staying connected to the intention. This is so important, but if you're dwelling on it, if you're dwelling on the intention, on the outcome of what you want to occur, that tells you that you have not released it. It is still with you. Another tool from the messengers is using our brains. They tell me that the brain operates like a radio tuner. We can use this on our dashboard like a radar screen. As that arm sweeps around, we'll see and hear a blip as we connect to our non-physical source. And using our brains as that tuner, we can find that right frequency that we're searching for now that we know it's on our radar. And that can help us better tune into those vibrations. So as you can see, we have an inexhaustible list of tools that we can use in our explorations into the 5D. If you imagine it, it can happen. I'm ending this series by repeating the importance of phasing. Throughout my travels in the 5D, my phasing increases to the point that I have traveled farther into the unknown than I ever dreamed possible. I have slipped into a dimension, into a world of pure divine bliss, showing my origins of everything, the origins of all that is. Just recently, while beta testing some of the upcoming meditations for Monroe Institute's Expand app, I had an amazing experience. I traveled far beyond, and I found myself standing over this body of what looked like boiling water, although I knew it wasn't hot. And it was thicker than water, and it was gold in color. I stepped into this pool and I began to dissolve. I realized that I had slipped into the primordial sea of all that is. Tears flowed down my face and I sobbed. I was fully immersed in love, a love that was so profound, so overwhelming, and undefinable. Once we realize that we come from there, from that all-powerful, all-encompassing love, then everything changes. When we leave the earth realm, we will once again return home to love, to compassion, to pure bliss. We will look back on our lives on earth as but a drop of water in the ocean, as just a millisecond within a span of millions of years. So why not bring some of that knowledge into our 3D lives? Why not realize our purpose on earth? We are here to learn, to experience. There is unity within the 5D. Everything is connected. We are part of the Creator. Just as our observer is part of who we are, we become observers and experiencers for the Creator. We experience 3D life in ways that are not possible in the 5D. So let us live our lives. Let us experience life and learn lessons. Let us gain a better understanding of who we are, who we really are. We are awareness. We are that great awareness, consciousness, the Creator expressing. We are love. And we are life itself. Never forget how important you are. And above all else, remember, you are loved. You are love. I hope you enjoyed this series as much as I enjoyed you joining me on this journey. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting. Always remember your divine nature. Until next time, goodbye.